Have you ever wanted to read the entire Bible? Hi, my name is Ronald. Welcome to Bible Talk, where I break down and discuss the Bible. Today I'm continuing in the book of Exodus with chapters 16 to 18. Chapter 16, verse 2 and 3, it says, "Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, 'Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger.'" Now, they complained because they did not have enough food. The supplies that they carried with them from Egypt was beginning to run out, but starvation was far more anticipated than they experienced. They went from singing to complaining very quickly. Now, Israel selectively remembered the past and considered their time in Egypt a good time. They lost sight of God's future for them and twisted the past to support their complaining. This thinking is common among those who complain. This is another common practice among those who complain. They insisted that Moses and Aaron had evil intentions, yet a complaining heart often finds it easy to accuse the person that they're complaining against of the very worst motives. Verse 4 and 5, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day, and I may test them on whether they will walk in my law or not. And it shall be on the sixth day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.' Now they were warned not to take more than their daily amount. 'Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you.'" This was a remarkable promise. Bread doesn't usually rain from heaven. Yet God promised that he would provide for Israel in this unexpected way. This reminds us that God may provide resources that we never knew existed. Sometimes he provides from familiar resources, and sometimes he provides from unexpected resources that you never even imagined. God promised to send bread from heaven, but he didn't promise to drop it into their mouths. They still had work to do. They still had to go out and gather what they needed every day. "That I may test them," the blessing of bread from heaven came with the responsibility of obedience. Now, this responsibility would test Israel and measure their obedience. The test came on the sixth day, when they were to gather twice as much, so the seventh day could be received as a day of rest. He's introducing the Sabbath here. You'd think that the whole experience of the plagues and the Passover and the deliverance at the Red Sea, that Israel would already know that the Lord brought them out of Egypt, yet experiences, even great experiences, don't change the heart as much as we often think they do. Will they obey the rules that he sets up for how and when to gather the manna? He says they're supposed to gather it every day except the Sabbath. Now, God's testing here addresses many things. Will they have a scarcity mentality and try to hoard manna? Or will they trust that the food will be there again tomorrow morning? Will they be willing to work twice as hard on Friday to rest on Saturday? And will the food that they gather on Friday be enough until Sunday morning? Will God keep his promise to provide it for them if they stop to rest as he had commanded? Then we see in verse 13-14, "So it was that quail came upon the evening and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. And when the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was the small round substance as fine as frost on the ground." Now, miraculously, God provided Israel with plenty of meat in the wilderness. This was a significant display of the mercy of God. When Israel complained, God could have easily answered with judgment or discipline, and he gave them meat instead, mercy. Verses 19, "Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moses, but some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank." Now, Moses was angry with them, so they gathered it every morning, every man according to his need. And when the sun became hot, it melted. They heard God's command, and they knew God's command, yet for some reason they felt that they did not have to obey God's command. There was a harsh penalty for their disobedience. What they gathered in disobedience bred worms and stank. Then they moved to a new site, Rehodim, and there was no water. So God tells Moses to strike a rock with his staff, and when he does, water pours out. Now remember this moment, as we'll come back to this in a few days. Then an invading army, the Amalekites, come and attack them. So Moses appoints Joshua to quickly put together an army so that they could fight back. Now, Moses stood on the top of the mountain and held up his hands with his staff. And while he did that, the Israelites were winning. But when he lowered them, they were losing. So 2 men, Aaron and Hur, held up his arm until Joshua and his army won the battle. Chapter 18, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, sees how Moses works all day and night and gives him some advice. He tells Moses to delegate specific tasks to trustworthy men to give him a hand, as he would not be able to keep up this pace for much longer. Now, it wasn't that Moses was unfit to hear their disputes, and it wasn't that he didn't care about their disputes. It wasn't that the job was beneath him, and it wasn't that the people didn't want Moses to heed their disputes. The problem was simply that it was too big of a job for Moses. His energies were spent unwisely, and justice was delayed for many in Israel. Now, Moses needed to delegate, even as we see in Acts 6, verse 2-4, when the apostles insisted that they needed to delegate so that they would not leave the word of God and serve tables. Now, I'm going to leave it here for today. May God bless you all. I'll see you next time. Thank you.